Hey guys, this is Sports with Dylan. As promised, I will be continuing on with my rankings leading up to the NHL season. This week, it is every single team's best defenseman ranked. I honestly don't even know who the best defenseman is supposed to be on the Sharks. I think it might be Marc-Edouard Vlasic, but if someone told me I was wrong, I wouldn't even counter it. After Erik Karlsson was traded, the Sharks are nothing, especially on defense. They have no defense whatsoever. Maybe someone will step up this season, or maybe the team will just continue to be terrible. We'll have to see. There's a reason the Canadiens drafted a defenseman in the first round of the 2023 NHL draft. They don't have any superstars. Mike Matheson isn't bad, neither is David Savard, but after that, the Habs are lacking in solid defensemen. But that could very well change soon. Let's face it, Ryan Ellis is never going to touch NHL ice again. But he's still technically considered the best defenseman on the Flyers until he either gets traded or retires. So, for now, it's Ryan Ellis. Rasmus Andersson is a good defenseman, just not a superstar. You'll find there's quite a few of them on this list. The thing the Flames have, an advantage over many of the teams above them here, is that they have a lot of defensemen that are right around the same level. It took me quite a bit of time to figure out who was the best, because they have people like Chris Tanev, Noah Hannafin, Mackenzie Weegar, Nikita Zadorov, and Rasmus Andersson. They're all very good defensemen. So the Flames have basically three lines of good defending, even if none of them are the best defensemen in the league, which is not what many of the teams further up on this list have. Matt Dumba finally left the Wild. We have been waiting for it for years now. He finally left and went to the Coyotes. They're not expecting a good season this year, especially without Jacob Chychrun on defense for an entire season. But maybe Matt Dumba will be bad. We'll see. The Blues are another one of those teams I was talking about, like the Flames. They have four good defensemen with Torrey Krug, Colton Parayko, Nick Leddy, and Justin Falk. I think Justin Falk is the best defenseman out of the four, but it's really tough to say. They're all very good defensemen, just none of them would be considered the best in the league. Cam Fowler is still going strong for the Ducks. I feel bad for the guy, because he's been stuck on the Ducks for so long, and yet he's always played well with them. Maybe he will finally get a trade, or maybe, who knows, the Ducks will start to turn it around this year. This was a tough one between Jared Spurgeon and Eunice Brodin. I end up going for Spurgeon because he is more offensive as well as a solid defensive defenseman, while Brodin is mostly just defensive. Spurgeon is one of the key players for the Wild right now. He is one of the people making things happen there. And he provides quite a bit for his team, in and outside of the ice. I'm an Oilers fan, and yet I am not much of a fan of Darnell Nurse. He is one of the higher paid defensemen in the league, despite just not having it, especially as a defensive defenseman. He's got a lot of work to do, but it's entirely possible that someone like Evan Bouchard or Matthias Ekholm pass him on the list for this time next year. Noah Dobson actually had quite the season this past season, and I'm looking for even more of him. He could easily shoot up these rankings pretty soon. John Carlson is still going strong. While he did struggle with injuries this past season, he is still a very good defenseman when on the ice. hopefully for the Capitals' sake, he can stay healthy for the full season this year. Drew Doughty is just like John Carlson, still going strong despite getting up there in age. We'll have to see who the Kings have to help Drew Doughty out this year. I'm not really sure about their defense aside from Doughty. They traded away Sean Durzi, who is one of their few solid defensemen, and instead are hoping and relying on 2021 first-round pick Brant Clark to immediately become a superstar the moment he touches NHL ice. The only other player they have is Vladislav Gavrikov, and he's not bad, but he's not a superstar, so we'll have to see. Morgan Rielly had a down year last year. In fact, there's a couple Maple Leafs defensemen that are catching up to him. This whole Maple Leafs defense is quite strong, and I believe that it's anyone's race now. But hopefully, Morgan Rielly can turn around and look more like his old self this coming season. Vegas was another one of those teams that's really hard to pick a number one defenseman. It was tough between Shea Theodore and Pietrangelo, but Pietrangelo gets the edge for his playoff performance and how he plays offensively as well as defensively. Brent Burns is 38 years old now? And yet, he is rocking it on the ice. Holy crap, this guy played lights out last year. Despite the fact that, he was 37 years old. And yet, he looked like one of the best defensemen in the league. He looked like he did 10 years ago. So, credit to him. This Hurricanes defense is looking to be very good this coming season. Vince Dunn had a breakout in Seattle. Something that I was waiting for to happen. I figured it was going to happen because he'd always looked quite good. But this year, he closed it. And he should continue his rise up the rankings. When on the ice, Zach Werenski is a very good player. The problem being, he is not on the ice that often. If he can stay healthy the entire this coming season, which is a tough ask of him, but if he can, he will rise up these rankings quite a bit. Another team where it was hard to pick a number one defenseman. Thomas Chabot and Jacob Chychrun are neck and neck on who's the best defenseman in the league. And this Ottawa defense should be really fun to watch this year. Another person that could sneak into it would be Jake Sanderson. It's entirely possible he takes the role as the top defenseman on the Senators. After a Calder-winning, amazing rookie season, Seider did not have it the same way last year. But I am projecting him to rebound quite a bit this next year in Detroit. Seth Jones just hasn't quite been the same since he got traded. Part of it could be the fact that, everyone around him isn't there. There is no defense, no offense, and really no goaltending in Chicago. But that could very well change this year. Aaron Ekblad's another guy. Despite being the number one overall pick, he's shown flashes, but he still struggles. He makes mistakes that he really shouldn't all the time still. And he's now injured for the first part of this coming season, which will be rough, losing their top two defensemen in Aaron Ekblad and Brandon Montour for the first couple months of the season for Florida. Dougie Hamilton is finally making his contract worth it in New Jersey. After a couple seasons of meh, then last year he broke out into a superstar in New Jersey with that defense. This year, he should be pretty good, being able to bounce off of Luke Hughes and potentially Simon Nemec. The problem being, both of those guys are very unproven, unlike who we had before in Ryan Graves and David Severson. But we'll have to see what becomes of all of it. Quinn Hughes is another guy that broke out this past year, and he is now the new captain of the Vancouver Canucks. We should be expecting even more from him this year, because the Canucks defense as a whole got better, and he should be on a line with better overall players. But we'll have to see. I keep seeing Miro Heiskanen predictions to win the Norris Trophy. I think he is a very good defenseman, but is he ever going to be the top defenseman in the league? We'll have to see. Rasmus Dahlin quietly had one of the best seasons amongst all NHL defensemen last year. He is now one of the people that could be carrying the Sabres to the playoffs, along with Owen Power and Matthias Samuelsson. That defense is scary. Where the heck did Josh Morrissey come from? He wasn't even my top-ranked defenseman on the Jets last year. And yet, he managed to break out into a superstar, one of the best defensemen in the league overall. So good for him, and hopefully he can continue that trajectory. Charlie McAvoy had a good season last year, to say the very least. Boston had a great season last year, with the help of that terrifying defense with McAvoy and Hampus Lindholm, as well as mid-season addition Dmitry Orlov, who then proceeded to leave in free agency. McAvoy has the advantage of the fact that the goaltending in Boston is so great. He doesn't have to do as much as some defensemen might. Victor Hedman is starting to show his age. He is no longer a top 3 defenseman in the NHL, and it's possible that this time next year he won't even be top 5. I'm sure he'll stay with top 10 for a while, but slowly, bit by bit, he is sliding down these rankings. After almost winning the North the year prior, this past season Roman Josi was still very good, but he was not in consideration for the best defenseman in the league. This year, we'll have to see. Will he start to show his age? He is getting up there in age. And the Predators team as a whole doesn't look outrageously strong. But maybe he will come back to life and play like a superstar again. Adam Fox is a superstar in New York. Regardless of how New York keeps failing in the playoffs, then Adam Fox will continue to be one of the single best defensemen in the NHL. In fact, he is my current prediction to win the Norris Trophy this coming season. After winning the Norris the year prior, this past season, Cale Makar continued to play amazingly. The problem is, he just didn't quite play on the level as the guy above him, who just played outrageously good. But Cale Makar still had a very, very good season. And I suspect he will replicate that again this coming season. And that guy above Cale Makar would be Erik Karlsson. Erik Karlsson may be 32, and yet he is playing outrageously good. I mean, one of the best single seasons for any defenseman of all time in the NHL. He just played so well last year on a Sharks team that was miserable. The entire team was awful, except for him. The goaltending seemed awful, and yet Erik Karlsson carried that entire team to not a very good record because he's one player. But he just played so well on his own. He's now in Pittsburgh, where he has a good team around him. Good goaltending, good other defenders, including Chris Letang, who was the Penguins' best defender for the longest time, and of course, a good offense led by Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin. This would be a good year for Karlsson, although maybe he will start to show his age. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys again next week.